The Spanish colonization of the Philippines, starting in the 16th century, significantly impacted the country's culture, politics, and society. Ferdinand Magellan's arrival in 1521 marked the beginning of over 300 years of Spanish rule, which influenced the Philippines' language, religion, and governance. Key moments in the fight for independence include the Malolos Constitution of 1899, which established the First Philippine Republic, and the Cartilla ng Katipunan, a foundational text promoting nationalism and social justice. These events culminated in the Declaration of Philippine Independence in 1898, shaping the nation's identity and sovereignty, with lasting effects on modern Filipino society. Ferdinand Magellan's arrival in the Philippines on March 16, 1521, marked the beginning of interactions between the Spanish expedition and the local inhabitants of Zamal. The account highlights the practical needs of the journey, such as fresh water, while also emphasizing the initial cultural exchanges. The friendly gestures, gift exchanges, and hospitality shown by both sides set the tone for future relations. These early encounters laid the foundation for Spanish colonization, influencing the Philippines' historical and cultural evolution under Spanish rule. Magellan's first voyage around the world, arrival in the Philippines, March 16, 1521. Context of arrival: Magellan and his Spanish expedition arrive on the island of Zamal in the Philippines. Key observations: need for fresh water and provisions. First interactions with the local inhabitants, highlighting the cultural exchange. Initial friendly gestures, gift exchanges, and displays of hospitality between the Spanish explorers and the locals. Significance: these encounters mark the beginning of relations between Spain and the Philippines. Set the stage for future colonization and the cultural transformations under Spanish rule. Legacy: Magellan's voyage influenced the Philippines' historical trajectory and societal development.
In March 1521, the Captain General's fleet arrived at a high island called Zamal. They landed on a nearby uninhabited island to take water and rest. On March 18th, they encountered friendly locals who offered fish, palm wine, figs, and other goods in exchange for gifts like red caps and mirrors. These islanders introduced the crew to palm trees that provided wine, oil, vinegar, and a fruit called cocho, which they used in various ways, including making bread and milk. The islanders were welcoming, and after showing the captain their goods, they promised to return with more supplies. On March 22nd, the locals returned with fruit, palm wine, and a cock, suggesting they had poultry. The local chief, an old man adorned with gold jewelry, was friendly and shared the customs of his people, who wore large earrings and painted their faces. The captain continued to help his sick men on the island, and they enjoyed the fresh fruit and beverages provided by the locals. On March 25th, the captain's ship prepared to depart, but one of the crew members fell into the sea and was saved by a piece of sail. They continued their journey, passing several small islands. On March 28th, they arrived at another island where the locals were initially wary but became friendly when offered gifts. The captain's interpreter, a slave from Sumatra, communicated with the king, who brought gifts, including rice and fish, and expressed goodwill. On Good Friday, the captain further strengthened the relationship with the king, offering him a red and yellow robe, a cap, and other gifts, while showing him the ship's armament and technology. The king was impressed by the captain's weapons and military power. The captain also showed him a map and explained their journey. In return, the king led the captain to his boat, where they shared a meal of pig's flesh and wine in a ceremony of friendship, with both parties mimicking each other's gestures of respect. September 20th, 1519. The voyage begins. Magellan and his crew depart from San Lucar de Barrameda, Spain, and cross the Atlantic to reach Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. September 26, 1519. Magellan and his crew sail southwestward and reach the Canary Islands to take in provisions. A fast-sailing ship overtakes him, bringing a message from his father-in-law who warns him of treachery among his men. December 13, 1519. Magellan and his men enter Rio de Janeiro. Magellan names the place Santa Lucia because upon reaching the island it is Santa Lucia's day. Here they trade with the local tribes. They exchange their stuff for food and water. March 31, 1520. Magellan continues his expedition going south until winter storms came and force him to stay in Puerto San Julian in Argentina. April 1, 1520. A mutiny breaks out. This is led by Quesada, the captain of Concepcion, Mendoza, captain of Victoria, and Cartagena, captain of San Antonio. Juan Sebastián de Elcano also participated. Magellan handles the situation and serves justice to the guilty. Quesada is executed. Cartagena and Father Sanchez de la Reina are marooned on the coast. The 40 men who joined the mutiny, including Elcano, are pardoned. End of the April. The ship Santiago is sent on another mission to find a passage. The ship is caught in a storm and is wrecked. October 21, 1520. Magellan arrives at the Cape of the 11,000 Virgins, known today as the Strait of Magellan. 28, 1520. Magellan begins his trans-Pacific voyage with only 3 ships. During the expedition, Magellan and his crew are lost in the Pacific for more than 3 months. The crew members go mad due to sickness and hunger that forces them to eat worms, rats, sawdust, and water-soaked leather. They suffer scurvy. 19 of his men die and 30 of them become very ill. March 16, 1521. After being lost in the Pacific for more than 3 months, Magellan sights an island in Samar at the dawn of March 16, 1521. Some call this event the discovery of the Philippines. Note, discovery of the Philippines is a term used by foreigners. Our ancestors have long been in the Philippines and already had a connection with different people and countries. March 17, 1521. Magellan lands in Homenhan. March 18, 1521. Magellan and his hungry crew are welcomed by our ancestors from the neighboring island of Saluan. They feed the foreigners bananas, fish, coconuts, and palm wine. March 25, 1521. Magellan leaves Homenhan. During his expedition, Magellan is caught in a storm, forcing him to sail south. He seeks shelter from the typhoon at the northeast tip of Mindanao toward Batuan Bay. March 28, 1521. Magellan lands in Masao, Batuan, Agusan del Norte, which is ruled by King Raja Colambu. Upon Magellan's arrival, Colambu and his brother are hunting. Colambu welcomes Magellan. March 29, 1521. A blood compact is made between Magellan and King Colambu to seal their newfound friendship and brotherhood. This is the first blood compact recorded in the country. March 31, 1521. The first Catholic Mass is held on Limasawa Island. The Mass is officiated by Reverend Pedro de Valderrama, the fleet chaplain. The Mass is attended by Magellan, King Colambu, Suagu, Spanish voyagers, and fellow Filipinos. April 7, 1521. After he is directed by King Colambu, Magellan lands in Cebu that is ruled under Raja Humabon. On the same day, Magellan and Humabon make a blowed compact. April 14, 1521. A Mass is held in Cebu. After the Mass, Magellan plants a wooden cross that still exists today, and is now known as the Magellan's Cross. Hara Amihan, the wife of Raja Humabon, is baptized along with 800 natives. Hara Amihan is then named Queen Juana in honor of King Charles I's mother, Juana. April 27, 1521. Magellan invades Mactan with his army of 60 Spaniards from the 3 vessels and 1,000 Cebuano warriors. His goal is to defeat Datu Lapu-Lapu. On this day, the Battle of Mactan happens. Though Magellan and his men are armed, they are greatly outnumbered. Magellan is wounded in his right leg by a poison arrow and a bamboo spear is pierced to his face. Falling on his face, Magellan is killed by Lapu-Lapu and his men. After the death of Magellan, his men flee Mactan. Lapu-Lapu was then named the first Filipino hero who fought for freedom. Magellan's first voyage around the world, 1519 to 1522, was significant for global exploration as it marked the first successful circumnavigation, revealing Earth's vastness and connecting distant regions. This voyage also provided crucial geographical information, opening new trade routes and fostering cultural exchange. In the Philippines, Magellan's arrival in 1521 introduced European powers, leading to Spanish colonization, which lasted for over 3 centuries. This encounter initiated trade, cultural exchange, and conflict, with Spain motivated by the region's resources, particularly spices. Magellan's voyage laid the foundation for the introduction of Christianity, changes in governance, and the blending of Spanish and indigenous cultures, shaping the Philippines' identity for generations. Ferdinand Magellan's first voyage around the world, which culminated in his arrival in the Philippines in 1521, marked a transformative moment in the archipelago's history, setting in motion a complex interplay of cultural, political, and social changes that resonate to this day. This expedition not only initiated over 3 centuries of Spanish colonization but also introduced new trade routes, religious beliefs, and governance structures that profoundly shaped Filipino identity. The legacy of Magellan's journey continues to influence contemporary discussions about national sovereignty, cultural heritage, and the historical narratives that define the Philippines, making it a pivotal event in understanding both the past and present of the nation.
Module 2.2. Analyze the Malolos Constitution's role in founding the first Philippine Republic and its significance for Philippine independence. Malolos Constitution. The Malolos Constitution was a pivotal document in Philippine history, symbolizing the aspirations for independence and self-governance. Despite its short-lived implementation, it laid the groundwork for future democratic principles in the country. A committee headed by Felipe Calderon and aided by Cayetano Arellano, the Constitution was drafted, for the first time, by representatives of the Filipino people, and it is the first Republican Constitution in Asia. The original title of the first document of the Malolos Constitution is the Political Constitution of 1899. The Constitution has 39 articles divided into 14 titles, with 8 articles of transitory provision, and a final additional article. The final draft of the Constitution was presented to Aguinaldo, and this paved the way to launching the first Philippine Republic. I established a democratic, republican government with 3 branches, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches. And it called for the separation of churches and state. 1898. June 12th, Emilio Aguinaldo declared Philippine independence from Spanish rule in Kawit, Cavite. July 18th, Emilio Aguinaldo issued a decree asking for the election of delegates to the Revolutionary Congress. 5 days later, another decree declared that Aguinaldo appointed the representatives of Congress. He appointed 50 delegates in all. September 15th, the Malolos Congress is convened in Malolos, Bulacan, to draft the constitution for the newly declared republic. November 1st, the draft of the Malolos Constitution is completed by the Congress. 1899 January 20th, the Malolos Constitution is ratified, establishing the first Philippine Republic. Emilio Aguinaldo is elected as its president. February 4th, the Philippine-American War begins, leading to conflict between Filipino forces and American troops. 1901 March 23rd, Emilio Aguinaldo was captured by the American forces in Palanan, Isabela, which marks a significant turning point in the Philippine struggle for independence and effectively ends the First Philippine Republic. Malolos Constitution ratified on January 20, 1899. The Malolos Constitution was a landmark document in Philippine history as this marked the First Philippine Republic. This arose the aspirations for independence following more than 3 centuries of Spanish colonial rule and was significantly influenced by the events of the Philippine Revolution. Historical context: the late 19th century was a period of rising nationalism in the Philippines, fueled by increasing discontent with Spanish governance, the desire for reforms, and the influence of Enlightenment ideas. The execution of the national leader, Jose Rizal, in 1896 galvanized a movement for independence, leading to the Philippine Revolution against Spain. After the defeat of Spanish forces in 1898 in the Philippines, the revolutionaries declared independence on June 12. Formation of the Malolos Congress. Following the Declaration of Independence, revolutionary leaders convened a Congress in Malolos, Bulacan, in September 1898 to draft a constitution that would establish a republican form of government. This comprised of representatives from various regions and sectors of society, reflecting a collective aspiration for self-governance. Key features of the Constitution: the Malolos Constitution was influenced by democratic principles and sought to establish a framework for governance. Key features included separation of powers. It established an executive, legislative, and judicial branch to ensure checks and balances. Universal suffrage. The Constitution granted voting rights to all male citizens, a progressive step for the time. Civil liberties. It included provisions for fundamental rights and freedoms, such as freedom of speech, assembly, and religion. Education and social welfare. Emphasis was placed on education and social justice, reflecting the aspirations of newly independent nation. Impact and legacy. Despite its progressive nature, the Malolos Constitution faced significant challenges. The Philippine-American War erupted in February 1899 as the United States sought to assert control over the Philippines. The conflict effectively undermined the First Philippine Republic, leading to the eventual dissolution of the Malolos Constitution. The Malolos Constitution remains a symbol of the Filipino quest for independence and self-determination. It laid the groundwork for future governance in the Philippines and continues to be referenced in discussions about democracy, sovereignty, and national identity in the country's history. Malolos Constitution's role in founding the First Philippine Republic and its significance for Philippine independence. Establishment of a republic. The Malolos Constitution created the First Philippine Republic, formally recognizing the sovereignty of the Filipino people. It was a significant step towards self-governance after centuries of colonial rule. Framework of government. The Constitution outlined a separation of powers among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, embodying democratic principles. This structure was influenced by the American and French constitutional models, reflecting a desire for a modern, democratic society. National identity. The Constitution was a symbol of Filipino nationalism and identity. It encapsulated the aspirations of Filipinos for independence and self-determination, serving as a unifying document during a time of political turmoil. International recognition. By declaring a republic, the Malolos Constitution sought to gain international legitimacy for the Philippine independence movement. Although the subsequent Philippine-American War challenged this recognition, the document laid the foundation for future claims to sovereignty. Inspiration for future movements. The ideals enshrined in the Malolos Constitution inspired future generations in their quest for independence and democracy, influencing later constitutional developments in the Philippines.
Module 2.3 Assess the Katilia in Katipunan and its importance in guiding the principles and values of the Katipunan movement for Philippine independence. Katilia in Katipunan. The Katilia in Katipunan, or Katilia, is a significant document in Philippine history, serving as a moral and ethical guide for the member of Katipunan founded by Andres Bonifacio in 1892. The Katipunan aimed to achieve Philippine independence from Spanish colonial rule. The Philippines had been under Spanish control for over 3 AAS, leading to widespread discontent due to oppressive policies, taxation, and social injustices. The late 19th century saw the rise of nationalist sentiments, influenced by reformist movements and the writings of figures like Jose Rizal. Historical context: the formation of the Katipunan and Emilio Jacinto's role. The Katipunan, founded by Andres Bonifacio in 1892, achieved to free the Philippines for Spanish rule. The Katilia served as an educational and motivational guide for members. Emilio Jacinto, prominent leader, significantly influenced the group's ideology, emphasizing social justice and national sovereignty through his writings. Creation of the Katilia. Authorship: The Cartilla in Katipunan, authored by Emilio Jacinto, a key member of the Katipunan and a close associate of Bonifacio. Purpose: it was designed to instill revolutionary ideals and values among its members, emphasizing concepts like nationalism, justice, and the importance of education. Structure and context: The Cartilla in Katipunan, guiding principles and moral instructions. The Cartilla in Katipunan is a foundational document that outlines the principles, rules, and ethical guidelines for the members of the Katipunan, a revolutionary group in the Philippines. It emphasizes honor, integrity, and service to the nation while fostering virtues like bravery, camaraderie, and selflessness. Guiding principle: the Cartilla outlines the values that members of the Katipunan should embody. It emphasizes virtues such as love of country, encourages prioritizing the welfare of the Philippines. Justice, advocates for fairness and equality. Bravery, promotes courage in the face of oppression. Author of Cartilla Katipunan. Emilio Jacinto, born on December 15, 1875, was a key figure in the Philippine revolutionary movement against Spanish colonial rule. A highly intelligent individual, Jacinto joined the Katipunan in 1892, shortly after its founding by Andres Bonifacio. He quickly became a leader within the organization and was responsible for editing its revolutionary newspaper, Kalayaan. Jacinto is best known as the author of the Cartilla in Katipunan, a document that provided moral and ethical guidance for the members of the revolutionary group. The Cartilla emphasized core values such as patriotism, justice, and self-sacrifice, encouraging Filipinos to fight for their freedom and independence. Cartilla in Katipunan. Emilio Jacinto: the life that is not consecrated to a lofty and reasonable purpose is a tree without a shade, if not a poisonous weed. To do good for personal gain and not for its own sake is not virtue. It is rational to be cherishable and love one's fellow creature, and to adjust one's conduct, acts and words to what is in itself reasonable. Whether our skin be black or white, we are all born equal.
Summary report on the Declaration of Philippine Independence overview. The Declaration of Philippine Independence was formally proclaimed on June 12, 1898, at the ancestral home of General Emilio Aguinaldo in Cavite El Viejo, now Kawit, Cavite. The event marked a pivotal moment in Philippine history, asserting the country's national sovereignty after over 300 years of Spanish colonization. Key events and participants. Location and time. The declaration took place between 4 and 5 in the afternoon in Cavite El Viejo, about 30 kilometers south of Manila. National flag and anthem. During the declaration, the Philippine flag, designed by Mrs. Marcela Agoncillo, Lorenza Agoncillo, and Delfina Herbosa in Hong Kong, was unfurled. The national anthem, Marca Filipina Magdala, later known as Lupang Hinirang, composed by Julian Felipe, was played by the San Francisco de Malaban Marching Band. The Declaration. The act of the Declaration of Independence was written by Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista in Spanish. Bautista also read the Declaration in front of a large crowd. His speech drew on the spirit of the American Declaration of Independence, emphasizing the Filipino people's desire for freedom after enduring centuries of Spanish oppression. Content of the Declaration. The Declaration was a formal statement issued by the Philippine Revolutionary Government, emphasizing several core grievances against the Spanish colonial rule, the harsh treatment and abuses by Spanish authorities, particularly the civil guards who engaged in arbitrary arrests, executions, and forced deportations of prominent Filipinos. The oppressive actions of Spanish officials, such as the unjust deportation of Filipino leaders, were a central point of the Declaration. These acts, often carried out under false pretenses, highlighted the disregard for basic human rights by the Spanish colonial government. The Declaration also pointed to historical grievances dating back to the arrival of the Spanish in the Philippines, starting with Ferdinand Magellan's landing in 1521 and the subsequent Spanish conquest, which resulted in the loss of Filipino sovereignty. Revolutionary background. The Declaration also referenced the 1896 Philippine Revolution, which had been sparked by widespread dissatisfaction with Spanish rule. This revolution aimed to restore the independence and sovereignty of the Philippines, which had been eroded by the Spanish colonizers. The Agnabato Agreement. The Declaration mentioned the failed peace agreement between the revolutionary government and Spain, known as the Agnabato Pact, and the subsequent return of Emilio Aguinaldo to lead another revolution after the Spanish defeat by the U.S. Navy. Assertion of national sovereignty. The Declaration served as an official proclamation of the Philippines' independence from Spain, symbolizing the Filipino people's determination to regain their sovereignty. Shaping national identity. This event played a critical role in shaping the national identity of the Philippines. It marked the birth of a nation determined to establish its own identity and government, independent from colonial powers. Impact on global relations. The Declaration occurred amidst global shifts, including the Spanish-American War and the arrival of American forces in the Philippines, setting the stage for future conflicts over control of the archipelago. Conclusion. The Declaration of Philippine Independence on June 12, 1898, stands as a monumental moment in the history of the Philippines, marking the end of centuries of Spanish colonial rule and the beginning of a new chapter in the nation's quest for sovereignty and self-determination. The event not only united Filipinos under a common cause but also helped to define the country's national identity, which continues to resonate in the Philippines' political and cultural landscape. Thank you!